Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the Golden Globe Awards happening in Hollywood last weekend. This award show held by the Hollywood Foreign Press Organization honors what they consider the best and most acclaimed work in TV and film each year. In addition, like with many of these kinds of award shows these days, many of these liberal elitists in Hollywood use these shows as political platforms, usually doing so by saying something woke or anti-Trump in their acceptance speeches. And although we've covered these events many times before here on the show, today's story is actually pretty different. Instead of me quoting and reacting to terrible actors and producers making stupid and awkward left-wing political statements that always end up being pro-social justice warrior, of course, but this time something much different has happened. This year, comedian and actor and legendary performer Ricky Gervais hosted the show for his 5th time, and what he claims will be his last time too. You see, Ricky went all out on this one, jokingly hoping that this will be the last time he's hosting because he's pretty much trying to say everything he can think of in the most controversial ways possible, which means he'll never get hired for this again. This is basically what Gervais himself said too at the beginning of his opening for the Golden Globes. And we're going to go over that speech extensively soon too, because he calls out everyone in Hollywood for everything we've been thinking and saying for years about them. And it's rather amazing to watch the reactions. But first, let's talk a little bit more about Ricky Gervais himself just briefly, because not only are some maybe not too familiar with the guy, but also, even those of us who are big fans of him like myself, well, he's still a bit of an enigma to us all. Because, of course, Ricky Gervais is a big liberal, but at the same time, he's anti-SJW and usually on our side for most issues. In addition, Ricky Gervais is also an English stand-up comedian, actor, writer, director, producer, and musician. He is perhaps best known for creating, writing, and acting in the British television series The Office from 2001 to 2003, which of course was also remade into an American version with the very same name, and The American Office went on to become one of the biggest comedy shows in TV history, which also spurred a whole subgenre of mockumentaries. But to just credit Ricky Gervais with The Office doesn't really do him justice. He's had as much or more success in various other ventures as well. Not only has he created numerous other hit TV shows in Britain and America, but also Gervais is a world-famous stand-up comedian who stands tall with some of the best of all time, and certainly he's one of the best living stand-ups still performing to this day. With all that said, Ricky can certainly be seen as a comedy and entertainment juggernaut, but at the same time, he's really not part of the elitist Hollywood system officially. He's a funny, successful, handsomely rich performer, and he did it mostly on his own merit and outside of Hollywood's grasp. Sometimes dabbling in Hollywood production, sure, but never really coming under their thumb, and certainly he doesn't toe the line with their typical liberal SJW and woke politics. Yes, Ricky Gervais is anti-social justice warrior, surely, and he's anti-establishment and anti-elitist as well, and this trend is something he's always had as part of his persona too, but lately it's certainly been reaching a fever pitch. Perhaps it's because the woke crowds and PC culture out there is getting so widespread and unbearable, but also it's probably because Ricky has become more and more untouchable each and every year. He's already made millions of dollars, he's established his career and legacy, so there's not much Hollywood or anyone else can do to the guy to stop or censor him, and this has resulted in Gervais speaking out a ton lately too, which is great, and it's particularly becoming entertaining on Twitter. And then, of course, now recently, he was really opening up and tearing into people while hosting the Golden Globes this weekend. Back to that speech now, because not only did Ricky mention it would be his last time hosting at the beginning of it, because no one would ask him to come back after what he's about to say, but also, Ricky called out the hypocrisy of the Golden Globes having him host again after he said so many non-politically correct things on Twitter. This is particularly funny because, as Ricky brings up, another comedian, Kevin Hart, well, he was fired from hosting another award show, the Oscars, just last year, all because Kevin Hart made a supposedly controversial joke over 10 years ago. Meanwhile, Ricky is making a stink on Twitter week after week in current year, yet he still gets gigs like hosting the Globes this weekend. For another example, I want to show you one of Ricky's tweets so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's a tweet Gervais made back in October during the whole Jessica Yaniv ma'am controversy. If you don't remember, this person in the tweet's photo and who's mentioned by Gervais, well, Jessica Yaniv made headlines at the time back in October because they were trying to get their male private parts waxed at a local salon, who of course only usually waxes women. This became a whole thing and a controversy, and other stories and videos were made about it too, which we also covered at the time. And also at that time, Ricky Gervais was commenting and siding with us, talking shit about this crazy ma'am just like everyone else. Well, everyone in our circles. And And with this tweet, Ricky was eventually called alphabetophobic, or something similar if you know what I mean. And these so-called controversial tweets of Ricky's can be easily found this week again too, because the liberal mainstream media are digging up his old tweets to try and cancel the guy, even though, as some say, Ricky Gervais is basically uncancelable. Is that a word? Uncancelable? He can't be canceled, essentially. He's too big to fail, as I said. And these attacks are coming at Ricky after his award show because, well, obviously, Hollywood is embarrassed that they got called out this weekend. And I'll show you more about this left-wing damage control later at the end of the video, but for now, let's get through the rest of his speech. After Ricky wraps up his intro about being offensive and not getting fired like Kevin Hart, he then outright says he's going to bash everyone in this room, which is filled with Hollywood celebrities, actors, producers, and filmmakers and everything. But at the same time, it's also important to note Ricky's tone and how he's not being very mean. He's just being playful, honest, and somewhat scathing because really, the people in this room have done a lot of bad shit. But as Ricky himself puts it, these are just jokes and not to be taken too seriously. We're all going to die one day and there won't be a sequel to our lives. But right from the beginning, we can start to see people are getting uncomfortable in the crowd there. The reactions throughout this opening speech are really priceless too, and very telling as well. It's almost like Ricky has this superpower to show everyone who the real assholes are in this room because while some people get it and they laugh along and have smiles on their faces, like fellow comedian and former irreverent TV personality Amy Poehler, in this picture here, she smiles and nods to the camera and can go along with things, but there are many other and more Hollywood elites in this room who are acting rather stiff and stuffy and awkward and uncomfortable, probably because they're offended by Gervais's unfiltered routines. So it's a good time to say kudos to the Golden Globes here for having Ricky on to host the show once again, because besides censoring a few of his curse words, they really did seem to give Gervais free rein here to say whatever he wanted, which was really amazing to watch. Next, Ricky joked about a current Hollywood elitist who's in trouble with the law immensely when Ricky roasted the crowd for coming in to this event in limousines while also complaining about the environment. He then also said that he came in a limousine too, and his limo's license plate was made by Felicity Huffman, a fellow actress. Huffman, of course, was one of the Hollywood mothers who got caught bribing colleges to get their kids accepted there. Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin are two somewhat famous actresses who are currently dealing with the law and ramifications of those crimes. And Ricky wasted no time calling them out for their silliness either. It's also important to note right here, you can already get the sense that Ricky Gervais is making fun of himself too in many ways. He's not acting like he's separate or better or above these Hollywood types, even though he really is, but really, by the way Ricky acts and says and frames things, he's actually including himself in as one of them. This makes his comedy bits somewhat self-deprecating here too, which can be seen by the way he said he also rode into this event in a limousine. Ricky's smart enough to know good and well that most would see him as just another Hollywood type, and that's also mostly right too. He's a rich and famous actor after all, and a cog in their system as well. And nothing really proves that more than being asked to host one of these award shows for the 5th time. Now, with that said, I wanted you to keep that in mind and note how Ricky is really a humble guy, all things considered. And the way he goes on about this Hollywood bashing thing, it's like he's bashing one of his own, because he really is. And he knows it too, so this kind of self-awareness and humility is really rare to see, and it's a nice touch. And it's something you hardly ever see in entertainment today. And ironically enough, Ricky Gervais doing this actually furthers himself from the same liberals he's trying to admit to be a big part of, while he's bashing them himself and everyone else. No one's left untouched. Next, things get more juicy when Ricky says everyone in the room is now terrified of Ronan Farrow. Farrow is of course an award-winning American journalist who became world famous when he investigated and uncovered much of the sexual abuse scandals going on in Tinseltown over the years. One of the most famous producers he exposed, who has the initials of HW, well, HW is actually going to trial for his high crimes this week, right now, as we speak, just days after Ricky Gervais brought this up in his jokes. Then Gervais doubles down on this call out when he proclaims the whole room there is full of a bunch of perverts, who also happen to make a bunch of sexual abuse related and based documentaries this year too. Surely he's implying the hypocrisy here, and that these people made these kinds of docs, like the ones about R. Kelly and Michael Jackson. Well, Hollywood is making these films in a post-Me Too world to try and save face now, by calling out certain people and ousting them as sorts of sacrificial lambs. That way the rest of Hollywood doesn't seem guilty too, when they really are. And Ricky Gervais is heavily implying that too. And now, with all that said, we can see through this whole charade. Then Ricky goes on to lampoon the left's obsession with forced diversity right now. He first remarks how many minorities were snubbed for awards this year, saying saying it's because the group behind this award show, the Hollywood Foreign Press, is apparently racist now. Next, Ricky says they won't be having the traditional memorial service in that section of the show that honors dead celebrities this year because, well, not enough minority celebrities died. It was mostly white people, so it wouldn't be fair to honor them, at least according to Ricky and his joke. This, of course, is a hilarious poke at the ridiculous levels which leftists will go to make things supposedly diverse. And judging by the way Gervais goofs on this, I think I could see him both implying how trivial and unnecessary diversity quotas are, and also he's making a parody of the phrase "there's too many white people," a claim many SJWs and liberal types will make day after day. Next, another controversial figure, this time with the initials JE, he gets a mention here too, when Ricky Gervais delivers a setup that ends with him saying a character in his show didn't kill himself, just like JE. This is a long-running meme that's been going over the internet for months now, and one that's been getting more and more evidence to support its truth lately too. And Ricky plays off of the shock and surprise this line causes in the audience by saying, "I know he was your friend, guys, but I don't care." And this bit is more true than you even know, since JE has been proven to be connected to many rich Hollywood elites and other liberals too, like former President Bill Clinton. And all these people likely took part in much of JE's illegal and very scandalous crimes, which are so gross and grotesque I can't even mention them here. Now I'll have to skip over some parts of this speech for time's sake and because some of this shit I can't even say or talk about on YouTube, but a few minutes later, towards the end of Ricky's intro, it gets really good again when he calls out Apple TV. Apple recently started getting into the TV show making business, which is all fine and dandy, sure, but Ricky isn't going to let these leftists get away with the hypocrisy revolving around this. Because for all the time the leftists try and complain and be righteous and promote social justice, they're also taking jobs from civil rights violators like Apple, who uses sweatshop factories in China with very poor working conditions, and sometimes even they've been caught using underage child labor. Rather hypocritical for Hollywood to now welcome Apple in and take their money after they've been trying to be so virtuous previously. This part is a great place to end on for Ricky too, because after calling Hollywood out for being hypocrites and accepting work from troubled companies like Apple and also Amazon and Disney, well, Ricky then says, or more specifically, he warns everyone in the room to not try and make political speeches tonight, saying if you were really woke, you wouldn't be taking money from places like Apple, who is funded by sweatshops. Also here, Ricky tells Hollywood not to use their wins tonight as platforms for their political speeches, because no one in entertainment is in any position to tell anyone anything. Then Gervais even says most of these people spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate change activist, of course. And I gotta say, wow, it's like Ricky is reading our minds here. He took every point and story and hypocritical idea we've talked about for the last year, and he squeezed them into a very tight little bit that I think will go down as one of the greatest roasts of all time. In the end, some still didn't take Ricky's advice here though. Most notably, later in the Golden Globe show, Patricia Arquette used her acceptance speech to do the worst and most cliche thing possible in Hollywood right now. She got political, pushed liberal agendas, and bashed Trump, of course. What a hero she must think she is, or rather, what an arrogant loser we see her as. I swear, Patricia Arquette does this shit every year too, and she acts like she's saving the world when she does it, when really, she's just preaching to the choir and telling everyone in Hollywood what they want to hear. Really, if anyone is a hero this week, it's obviously their host, Ricky Gervais, who was brave enough to step out of line and break the rules of PC culture by calling out all these Hollywood elitists and losers to their faces in this room. So it really should be no surprise that now the liberal mainstream media is coming after Ricky following this event. Many articles like this one on the screen here are trying to claim Gervais blew it and screwed up the show too, when really the opposite happened. And other articles are digging up old tweets of Ricky's, calling the guy racist and alphabetophobic, like I mentioned earlier. But like I also mentioned earlier, Ricky just can't be canceled right now, so he's in the perfect position to call people out. And we all know these attacks against Gervais aren't true either. And really, Hollywood, the liberals and leftists, they're just upset they got exposed by one of the best here. And they clearly can't take a joke, so they're reacting in the worst way possible. What did you guys think about this speech? Did you watch the Golden Globes? I didn't catch it, but I had to go back and watch Ricky's introduction speech because this stuff was amazing. Comment your thoughts on this and everything else below. And thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.